Today we're going to take a look at Chapter 12, File Operations. And this isn't something that's new to you, but in this world that's fast approaching us is a world of big data. And, you know, when you have a stats class and you're typing in 7 numbers to find the mean on a calculator, that's starting to become old school because quickly you're going to be working with thousands of numbers to find the mean and how that works because this world of big data is coming. So part of computer science, as you know, is to work with files. You've done it in Java class. You've done it back in Chapter 5. And we had these 2 streams from way back when, data types. One was IF stream, one was OF stream. I stood for input, O stood for output. Yeah, good. So these, you know, basics, what we needed, you have a good idea of what's going on with data being stored in files and read from files. But what if I wanted to be able to manipulate the files a little differently? Like what if I wanted to be able to append something at the end? Or, you know, all these other things that'll slowly come up to what I'd like to work with files instead of opening it for input, reading everything into an array, manipulating the array, and then writing everything back to output. So there are going to be times where I want to work right in the file. And this F stream is the class that's going to allow us to do this. Now, with this F stream, and if you read through the book or have the book, there was a table. It was table 12.2, and you saw a whole bunch of file. Oh, that's not an E. File access flags. And if you think of that statement, file access flags, we're putting in flags for different way to access the file. And, you know, you start seeing this IOS : and then things like ATE in case we wanted to concatenate, or there's one that's IN and OUT. What's interesting about the one with IN and the one with OUT is when I'm doing F stream, I'll be able to open a file. You know, I can go IOS in and IOS out at the same time as a parameter for when I open my file, so that I know the file can be used to be read from or input and then to be written to as well, instead of having to do like we would have done in the old school. In program 12.1, which is the one that you had to type in 12.1, again, I now I'm going to have a new include statement, include F stream. And we're okay with that. We, you know, it's one of those things that hopefully after 2 semesters with me, you've been alerted to making sure you look in the beginning to see if, in fact, there is anything that I include. So again, I didn't put the word include in, and I didn't put in the less than, greater than signs, but they do exist. As before, we start out by declaring an object of type F stream, and in code listing 12.1, we create a data file. Sometimes I used to have students tell me what's going on, like what's the verbiage for if I wrote F stream data file? Well, I'm creating an object of type F stream. Okay, and we've talked about objects and everything, you know, quite a few times. Okay? But in there, again, it's the linking it up, reading from the file or writing to the file, and then finally closing the file. That was the one thing that we always wanted to remember, was the dot close, to make sure that we were always closing our files. Any questions on 12.1? You also typed in 12.2, and this time you wanted to take a file, and in the first group of lines of code, you have a data file, and the data file is set up to be written to, and then the file gets reopened. And the big line here is line number 22, in which I put these file access flags. I have iOS out, iOS app. Now, iOS out would do what? Well, that would get a file ready to be written to. iOS app is going to allow me to append something to the end. So we have all this going on where I can finally do a little bit more with files than what I was able to do before. The next code listing that you had, I'm jumping ahead, and it was program 12.3. And inside of this program, now we get into making our files look fancy. And some of the stuff that we can do in the file that we've seen before, the first thing is we can set precision. And again, when I set precision, I round what? So you typed in the example, you have set precision 2. That means there would be 2 numbers after the decimal point. And if there were other numbers, would this in fact round up or would it truncate? Well, you typed it in and you looked at the output, hopefully, and you probably saved it and uploaded it versus actually looking to find out, does it round up or not? Well, if you have your books, program 12.3, you can take a look at it.
We didn't type in 12.3.
You did not? No, you didn't, because I don't even have it highlighted. Go look at 12.3. See, my sarcasm is wasted now.
I didn't think I remembered typing in a set precision program.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So I'm looking at 12.3. I have set precision. Does it truncate or does it round?
Looks like it rounds.
It does. So the answer is it will round. So I have the fixed inside of here. I have the set precision. If you took a look at program 12.4 at line 23, you can see set width. You know, again, you want to start sending reports to files so that you can then have the reports print out. You want to be able to round to a certain number of decimal points or space some things out. But you can see quickly how to make them nice and clean. Now, you typed in 12.5, and in 12.5, one of the things you learned how to do was to take a file object and pass it in. So I'm looking at line 20 that says show contents data file. So I have an argument that's of type data of type F stream. So I have F stream data file. So data file is my object name. And then I get ready and I want to pass it into show contents. So I simply pass in the name of the object, data file. And then when I get over to the heading of the method where this file is coming in, you notice that in the parameter list, I put the data type F stream. And for it, I now put ampersand file. And the ampersand is for what again?
Pass by reference.
Passing it by reference, right. So just a note to put that on there, and you're starting to see more and more this whole idea of passing by reference and different things. I'm now jumping ahead to taking a look at program 12.7, some exciting and fun things that are going on in program 12.7. Okay, now what I want you to do is jump to D2L. You should see a pile of code listings for the rest of chapter 7 that I didn't have you type in.
Chapter 12?
Chapter 12, yeah. Did that pop up on D2L?
Yes.
Okay, good. And you'll see one.
12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11.
Right, I want you to load up 12.7 and make sure you also have Murphy.txt, because that's the data file that's being used here.
I just typed it up I typed it up when I did the code listing.
12.7?
Well, yeah, 12.7 we had to type up, and in the text it says how that Jane Murphy and her address, that's what's actually in that text file.
Right. So if I take 12.7 and you run it, you're getting some kind of crazy program or some crazy output of Jane Murphy 47 Jones circle all in one line. Now, tell me what's happening there. Why is it when I print it out, it's all in one line? So it's program 12.7. Hopefully you went to D2L and you grabbed it and loaded it up. And it has a data file going with it. It's Jane space Murphy /N 47 space Jones space circle /N. I'm in North Carolina, you can see an example of it right before program 12.7 of what the data file looks like. Well, when I run this program, first of all, I love line 18. If name file, that's good. I really like line 21, while name file greater than input. What's that line doing, by the way, 21?
Really just putting everything in the file with no formatting or no spaces or anything.
Well, right. It's inputting from name file into input, which is a string. Right. So it's going into the file, it's reading a string, and what's the first thing that it reads in?
It's going to be the first character, isn't it?
Well, it's a little more than the first character. Remember, when I read something in, it reads in a string.
Okay.
And what's the technical term? Delimiter for reading in a string. Well, there's a whole bunch of them called white space, a blank, a carriage return, and so on. So when we get ready to read the first thing in, all we're reading in is Jane, and it's using space as a delimiter. Then we read in Murphy. It's using the /N as a delimiter. It's using what's titled white space as delimiters. So how do we fix that? Well, that's what code listing 12.8 is all about. You'll see line number 20 before the loop and line number 30 inside of the loop that is allowing us to read an entire line. And for an entire line, that ends with the /N. So this time we get the correct output of Jane, her street address, and her city, state, and zip. Any questions? Now, I gave you 12.9. It's in the book, but I gave it to you anyhow. The line that's important in 12.9 is line number 19. One of the things we can do is say, get line, data file, input, and then we could pass a third argument in, and the argument would be the $, which means it would read an entire line and keep going until it found a $. So right now, the default delimiter, when I want to read in just a string, is white space. The default delimiter for get line is a carriage return. But we could, in fact, if we wanted to, add $signs into our data file and read until we get to that certain delimiter. Okay. The last one I want to look at is program 12.10. And what I'm doing in line number 25, you'll see something that looks like file dot get ch. So this is helpful if, in fact, I wanted to take a file and read in a character at a time. So I can read in a string at a time. I can read in an entire line at a time. I can read in a character at a time. Questions? Okay, so what I now want you to do for the rest of class is there's something called Sonnet 18. So why don't you take 30 seconds and go Google Sonnet 18.
Sonnet or Sonic?
Sonnet. SONNET 18. Once somebody finds it, start to read it to me.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
Yeah, that's kind of nice. So here's what I want you to do for the rest of class. I want you to take Sonnet 18. I want you to copy it, paste it into Notepad, take all the special characters out, like double quotes and all of that extra stuff. You don't need it, and save that as a data file. That sounds pretty easy, right? Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So you're creating a text file called Sonnet 18. What I want you to do is go through and count how many of each letter there are. So capital A and lowercase a count the same. So how many A's, B's, C's, D's? So it sounds to me like you're going to be reading data from this file, a character at a time, and then you're going to fill the array.
So we can remove everything that's not a character from it?
Yep. Yep. So you don't have to bother with it. So create this with Fstream, do iOS in, save the data file, read it all in. Once the array is filled, you can display the array. In fact, why don't you sort the array before it's displayed so we can find out what is the letter that has the highest occurrence and all the way down. We don't need to sort them, but I just want to see which one's the highest. I would like you to be posting these. You can work on it by yourself. I'll keep it wide open unless you want to go in pairs. I know a lot of people like to work with other people because they learn things quickly. But once you start to get it, you can get ready and hit the chat and put on, hey, there are 14 W's or something like that. And then if you get it working, yeah, make sure somebody puts it out there on the discussion board to share for others. So
there are 0 Z's. That's my contribution.
all right. So test data wise, we already know there are 0 Z's.
Nice.
How many of you, and this is just a quick question, and I'd like you to answer it with thumbs up. How many of you will just run this program and the numbers you get, you're going to hope for the best? Versus how many of you would just take the first 6 words, delete the rest, run it, and make sure all of your counts are correct? See what I'm getting at?
The latter.
Yeah, that's right. Victor Ricci said that's what he would do. He would have a condensed file to make sure it works before he puts in something really huge. Yeah. Okay. As you get answers, throw them up on the chat so people can compare, and we'll see what letter occurs the most frequently. Any questions or comments? When you are done, we are done, and I will see you on Tuesday.
I have a question, but it's about 2:30.
Okay. Let me end this meeting first,
Okay.
so that I can